Welcome to the We Make Pops podcast. We are joined today by Pop Therapy Customs, aka Matt. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you guys and pumped to talk about making pops.
Well,
For sure.
it's
Thank you.
so cool. When Andy told me that you were interested, I was ecstatic. So we talked about you a little bit actually when we first started thinking of this podcast because we keep saying what we want to do is get the community more talkative, get the community interacting with one another, giving tips and advice. And that's why we actually brought you up, was because I think a lot of people in this community have an experience of you jumping onto their posts and commenting with helpful advice and whatnot. You even helped me on my ultra ego Vegeta when
Oh, nice.
when I messed up that glitter paint the first time, and you gave me some tips, and I posted my redemption post afterwards, and that was super helpful to me. So it's really cool that we get to talk to somebody who kind of embodies what we said we wanted this whole thing to be.
Sure.
So why is that? Why do you get out there and help the community the way you have?
When I started out, I started out with first collecting, right? I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I love collecting these pops. This is cool. I was really into Game of Thrones at the time. And then I was like, oh, there's pops that are like $700. There was this like glow in the dark, like White Walker pop or something. And I wasn't willing to spend that kind of money, So I went to Michael's and bought, just looked at the paints. I didn't know what I was doing, and just bought some glow paint and slapped it on layer after layer, and it looked okay, and it definitely was glowing, which is what I was going for.
Right.
And then I posted it on Instagram, and people were like, oh, that's really cool. And I got positive feedback. And then just through just continuingly to work at it, I've connected with people who are doing really cool stuff, and they supported me and gave me good feedback on what paints to use or brushes to use, and there's some people I think who are trying to be gatekeepers to techniques and stuff, and that just doesn't do anybody any good, so folks like Deep Thought Art, and Boss, those are guys that I've connected with, and MD Customs, so and all of them are just really open to sharing and supporting, and so I feel why would I keep secrets on how I do things, so I'm always open to giving feedback and helping folks out, and just appreciating people's hard work, because it's we were talking earlier, right? It's you put all this effort in, and then it doesn't take much to say nice job, or that looks great, or good, you know what I mean? It's what 2 seconds out of my day to hit a heart and say nice work, so so I think that's it, and I think just keeping things positive is where I try to be at, and I think giving good feedback too is important, because when I was starting out too, some of my stuff was not good, and people were telling me it was good, I was like, wait a second. And I appreciate people being nice, but I think just being critical as an artist,
right.
Looking back at some of those pieces, I could say wow, that paint was pretty choppy, or not smooth and what have you. But I think it's just all the process of learning and figuring out what works, So
Absolutely. No, that's so very well said, because that's something that Lewis and I have been very big advocates of, is just giving any feedback at all, or any tips at all, what paints do you use, or what
Right.
what stuff do you, because we've come across a few artists where they're just oh, I don't really say what paints I use, or or
Right.
what, especially when it comes to glows. I've had the hardest time asking anyone what red glow paints they use,
Oh my
because
God.
it's like a secret, like top secret. They
Don't
won't
tell
tell
me.
you anything. Yeah.
Right.
And so it's so nice to come across someone like you who is very open and just like, yeah, how about try this? Because that's when we first started talking. That's kind of what you would give me lots of tips, because I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying out. I was just kind of looking at some of Deep Thought's, some of his art, and kind of trying to emulate that, and the kind of
Sure.
the detailing and stuff. And
Yep.
you were also great at that. And that's something that it is hard as an artist to come across some feedback, because you are like putting yourself out there and like, look at this piece
Right.
I did, and you don't want anyone saying anything about it. And so, you kind of get that fear. But
For sure.
I think it's absolutely great, because then it helps you grow as that artist, and you go, okay, I see what you're saying.
Hmm.
I remember with one of mine, I did one of the hair, and you told me, you're like, less is more. You're like, try that, because sometimes you can over detail stuff, or you can just try too much, too many things, and it kind of gets hectic.
Right.
And so later on, I appreciated that, because I'm like, I see. You kind of start to see the relevance of that, and how it translates to the pieces like that. So yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's really great. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. So you just went to the store. I love hearing people's origin stories of how
Right.
they just get the, like, you know what, I saw this piece and I thought I could do it too, and I just went
Pretty
for it. I
much.
love it. I love it.
Yeah. So much was just like trial and error and like, what am I doing? Like, but lots of like, uh, kind of being like fearless and trying things out with like different clay and like paints and what have you. And but yeah, just trying to figure it out. And like I said, like the community too is like super helpful and like making suggestions. So but yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely less is more. Even still, like I try to edit myself, because it's like I'll be painting and then I'll add an extra line, and then it's like that's all I see when I look at, like, oh gosh, I
Yep.
should put that extra line in. It looks like shit, and it's nobody's
That's all you
noticing.
see. Yeah.
Like, yeah. So
I look at a lot of my older pieces kind of with that same thought process. Like I talked about my Goku and Vegeta and the Sav Jackets, one of the older episodes, and literally I spent, I think, 3 or 4 weeks just working on the cloaks and tearing it apart and putting it together new. If I were to do that piece now, I think it would probably take me like 45 minutes to
right.
get the cloak put together. And I've been doing that a little bit as I've been going back to some of my older pieces and redoing them.
Mhm.
Just as kind of like a benchmark for myself.
Sure.
I think it's using the community, taking those tips and tricks and going back and trying things that did give you trouble before. It's really cool just kind of to see the progress that you've made, which is why I really do like the fact that you are jumping on and giving honest criticisms and honestly, helping people kind of find their style and how to develop. And you even followed up when I posted the Ultra Ego Vegeta that I redid. You came back when I reposted, and you were like, oh, that's so much better. And I
Yes.
think that honest criticism and that honest conversation is going to help a lot of newer artists grow. I love getting the good job, you did great. But I think when people come on and tell you, X, Y, and Z could be improved, it does help you improve.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think like, reaching out directly to folks too is good to give that feedback. Cause remember I did it was a Dragon Ball piece. It was a long time ago. And so a couple, it's funny, you remember like the negative feedback and it
Oh
was,
yeah.
oh, this isn't it. And I was like, ooh, like that stung a little bit. But I think like looking back on it, like maybe it wasn't it, but I tried. So, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
And
go
it's
ahead,
so
Amy.
hard. It's so hard to do that too, because you do want to be supportive, but you also want to be like, maybe not so much this part. It's so hard to find that middle ground, because you
For
don't want to
sure.
insult somebody.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely important, I think, to just get that feedback out there.
Yeah. Certainly I was on like a Discord page or whatever, and there's just like a lot of artists. Are you guys on that one that like Death Squad started?
I think
I
so.
think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a great place to get like feedback and like tips and suggestions. So I love those kind of like forums to get support, because it's less like you're putting your stuff out there on your like page and someone saying, "Oh, that line sucks" or whatever. Whereas there, you can
Right.
like, kind of throw it out there and see what, get any feedback and things like that. So yeah.
No, you get great feedback. I remember I posted one of the Chainsaw Man ones I did on there, and they were like, you should add a cigarette or add different things. I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. Yeah, you get some good stuff on there.
Definitely.
So I see a few pieces in the background there.
Mhm.
So can you kind of break down for us, how would you describe your style?
I think I like to combine like a realistic approach with also like that animated piece. So like kind of yin and, I know it's like cheesy, but like yin and yang, like with the artwork, So it could be like with the Brooks piece, right? I have like super realistic, like looking water. I don't know if you can see it. Combined with like the realistic skull, but then also going with like the cell shade, So I really like painting like things like that. So yeah, so I kind of like dabble in the realistic and the animation piece. That's kind of like what I like to get into. I also like flesh and blood. I love painting those sorts of things, and then combining it with like the soft. I mean, it's like Funko, Funko's like it's what it is, right? You have this like really cute figure, right? And it's Hannibal Lecter, So I love
Right.
like the kind of dichotomy of the art, So yeah, that's how I would describe it. And I feel like I'm always like tweaking and trying out new things, So
I love it. Yeah, and it's such a cool style too. I've noticed that now that I'm thinking back how you described it, a lot of your pieces are like that. You'll have, yeah, I mean, you've done those pieces like the Hannibal Lecters, right? Correct? And like
I mean, I've
like
definitely
maybe a
done some horror
Jason or
pieces.
yeah, the horror ones, yeah. And it definitely has like that realistic detailing to it, but then you have the shading is like very, very animated and very like that. That's very cool. I love it.
Yeah,
It blends very well together.
thanks. Yeah, that's what I did with like that Ripley piece. I don't know if you saw that, the Ripley,
Yes.
like the mech suit. But yeah, that's like a really good example. So this like super like realistic mech armor combined with this like anime character, So kind of combining those two styles. So
And it blends so well together. Yeah, that Ripley piece is so well done. I can't believe you didn't take it apart, you said?
no, no.
Oh my goodness. We're just like shocked. I told Lewis, I showed him the picture and I was like, check this out. Cause I was like, this is nuts. And yeah, I was like, there's no way. We have to take our stuff apart. Like I have to at least.
Right.
It's so like, yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah, there's times where I've like taken apart pieces and then putting them back together is kind of like a pain in the neck. So I tend to, if I don't have to take it apart, I won't. So and then I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, there's just ways of getting into the piece where you can like not have to take it apart. I do recognize that it's easier, like especially
Right.
with cell shading and all your detail, like to have the whole arm to like paint is like definitely helpful. But I don't do it. So
Yeah, at the same time, yeah. Well, it is, no, absolutely. Taking it apart can be a pain in the butt. And it's just even just putting it back together can be a pain. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
I recognize that too. Yeah, it's so much easier. I used to paint without it. I used to just do the paint, straight on it, wouldn't
Mhm.
take it apart. And it was, there were lots of pieces that I couldn't quite reach the spots that I wanted to. So it kind of bugged me. Like I knew that like you couldn't really see it when you're looking at it, but
Right.
it bugged me. And so yeah, so no, I have to take stuff apart. That's the only way for me now.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I definitely think there's value in like, one of my like most viewed posts is me boiling pops. Like,
Yep.
Pop
what in
soup.
the world?
Pop
Like,
soup love people love it. Oh my
so
goodness.
weird. So like it's so funny too, because I have all this like hard work and whatever, and this
Yep.
one video of me boiling a couple Demon Slayer pops is like most watched. Maybe I should just have Bravo, right?
Yeah.
I was like, is that what I should
done.
just be doing? Just boiling pops and posting videos? Is
I'm
that
about to say
like,
post 10 more of those, please.
Yeah, people
like,
just, oh my goodness, they go crazy for it.
Well, and it's so
And it's
funny.
yeah.
I got to see it in person. So the Aki that I did with the fox, I did that with a buddy, and he because he does other art. He does like glass painting and tattooing, and so he's
Mhm,
like, I want to customize pops. You know, I see your page and I see you getting views, and I want
mhm.
to try it. So I'm like, all right, come on over, and I get the parts ready, and he's looking at him and he's like, okay, so how do we get them apart? And I'm like, boil him. And as we're boiling it, just the excitement that like came onto his face as we're like taking
Right,
these pops apart. And I don't know what it is. And I guess when I started, I was like equally like, whoa, that's super cool. But
right,
now as veterans in the game, we're just like, oh yeah, pop soup, and all
right,
the fans are just like
right.
People
Yeah,
love it. Yeah. It's so exciting. I think it takes you by surprise because you're like, it's not gonna melt it, right? You're like, nope, you're good. Like it's just gonna,
right.
yeah. And then it
Throw it
gets
in
super squishy, and then it just there's just a whole bunch of exciting things, a lot of aspects to it.
for sure. But and Lewis, I saw that. I think in your last video you talked about like, I don't know, a piece that you had did where you had like, it sounded like you used like 6 different pops to make it work. I mean, that is awesome.
oh god, I think it was this one, Power, where it was like the Lil Wayne body, the Brennan Urie feet, the Ken Kaneki legs. Oh, it's it's super cool. Like, you know, as we get to be in the game longer, we get to swap out all these parts and do all this stuff. But back when I first started, that Vegeta and Goku right here that had the Sab jackets, it's like 3 different parts, but I took apart like 6 different pops trying to get
Mhm.
the stuff that matched, and it was such a headache and so much waste.
Sure.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, we grow.
Yeah. But it's
I
cool
know we
too to
learn.
like when you like see it, when you're looking at different pops and you're like, oh my gosh, I can use that head for this, or that like gun is perfect for this thing. And then all of a sudden you're like piecing together you know, a piece that looks awesome, you know. So it's fun when that happens.
So
Well, Lewis is really good at that too. He's awesome at like I'll be like, I'm thinking about doing this pop, and he's like, oh, this head and this body. He just
Right.
like sends it. I'm like, how do you know this? That's insane. He's a wizard.
That's awesome. Yeah, some people just have a knack for it. You know, they're like this head, this body, some clay, blah blah. Yeah, and then all of a sudden,
Yep.
it's, how'd you think of that? Yeah,
Yeah, no, it comes together great.
yeah.
we
Lewis, I appreciate this just boxes behind you too. That's like standard pop room collection.
Oh yeah.
we're mid move right now. And
Wow,
so I just got everything set up yesterday, and I was
nice.
like, I could run and drop these off at the storage. But I had the baby here, and I was like, you know, it'll be a 1 episode little Easter egg, like, oh, this is what these
The
shelves
moving
require.
episode, yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, looks good. I like the setup. It's looking nice.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And speaking of, actually, we have your shelf behind you there. So I know that you said you started by collecting. So what do we got on the shelf right there?
So I have some prototypes that I have like a Jaws prototype, Chief Brody. And then I have like pops that my kids customized. Let me show you.
Yeah,
Oh,
please.
that's awesome. Yes, please.
For like my birthday, because I just have like junk pops everywhere. So like they made this guy for me. I think his eyes
I
glow.
love it.
Yeah, so
Dude,
I painted
yes.
that.
That's how my kids' pops look too when they do it. They just do it all
Yeah.
over. Oh, I love it.
So it's like Conan's body with some like mech head or something, you know?
That's awesome.
So yeah, so I have that. And then I have actually 3 deep thought art pieces that I love. They're like my favorite. Let me show you. This is like my favorite piece. It's hard. Can you guys see it okay? So
Oh
it's
yes, we can see it.
Game of
Yes.
Thrones, like cell shaded White Walker. It's like my favorite piece.
That's amazing.
And then I have some Bosco. You know, Bosco has these cool glow in the dark pandas, you know?
No way.
So
That's insane. So you've actually gotten some of their pieces. So that's awesome that you're collecting theirs as well. Cause yeah, they put out some awesome pieces. They're definitely like my top. I got Deep Thought, Pop Therapy, and then I like Bosco a lot. Those are like my top 3 the way that it is, because I like that type of the detailing that you guys do is like that's what I try to emulate for sure.
Yeah, no, I love those guys. So yeah, I'm like happy to like, it's just like so there's this like my little collection, then I have like my studio that has like just stuff everywhere, you know. So there's other pops there, but these are the ones that are like meaningful and that I like really appreciate, you know.
That's awesome.
You've
So
just given me a new goal. So I haven't made it as a customizer until I've made the pop therapy shelf.
there you go. Yeah.
Yep, you got to make it there. Yep,
There's room.
you got to work hard.
There's empty space.
I'm about to say, save that spot, put my name there. I'm I'm coming for the shelf.
But yeah. So that's what that section is. And then, like I said, I have a whole nother like room with some shelving and stuff with you know, other lines that I collect.
That's awesome. What are your favorite ones? What we got Marvel, or what's your favorite ones you're collecting?
I have Breaking Bad is some of the, I like that one. I think like my blue crystal Heisenberg is my like ultimate grail that I have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I have that. And then like, you know, I have like young kids, you know, so watching a lot of like Disney Pixar films with them, like I feel like there's meaning behind having some of those pieces like Ratatouille and Wall-E. So those are some of the things that I like to collect, thinking about them. And then I have the Zodiac pops. I don't know if you guys, those were like Funko exclusive. So like Pisces and Taurus. So all of them represent like me and my family, you know?
Oh, nice. I love
That's
that.
super cool. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're kind of neat. But I have like a lot, and I'm actually selling like a big portion of my collection just because it's like I want my studio to look more like a studio and not like a storage warehouse.
Right. That's how my collection area is getting. Yeah, my wife commented the other day. She's like, "It looks like a pop store down here." Like it looks like that's all. It's just all over.
Walls of pops. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds like heaven.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
amazing.
You guys really have a style far from what I'm able to do when it comes to the detailing and the cell shading. And yeah, that's something that I was telling Anna I'm actually going to be attempting here soon for the first time. Is doing a Pain from Naruto, and I'm gonna have him like fully blacked out with like the white highlights. In some areas, like his eyes are gonna continue to glow, and some parts on his hair. So what advice would you give to, you know, people who are jumping into this style for the first time?
One, that's awesome. And hearing you talk about it, I'm like coming up with ideas. Like, you can use this paint and you can do this, you know. So one would be talk to other artists who are doing it and like get feedback. So you're doing that right now. So good for you. Two would be to find like a really good reference photo that like has the cell shade that you want to like achieve, right? So that's what I do often. Or like Andy was saying too, like looking at other folks who have done it before and look at a piece that like this is like the style that I'm going for. So you get an idea of you know, how you want it to look. It's really hard. Like I spent a lot of time like looking at videos on like lighting and like if the light's coming from this angle, what would that mean? Like how would it alter the color? You know, so yeah, doing things like that too, like looking at I guess what would that be called? I don't know. Just like how lighting impacts the colors, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's finding like the right paint colors. Because I remember doing a cell shaded piece, and I can't remember what it was, but I like the actual shape of it was good, but the color was off. Like it was kind of muddy and murky looking. Because I was just like, oh, I want to make this flesh color darker, so I'll just add black. And like that's not how you do it. So, like,
Right.
like, why wouldn't that work? I want it dark, add black. I was like, no. So really finding like the right kind of paints to achieve the darker shades of flesh or like whatever it is you're doing is so important. So Vallejo makes like a really good like flesh pack. I think I might have it. Let's see.
Is it the Vallejo pale flesh?
So that's like one of the good flesh tones, but they have
That's
like
one of them, yeah.
I just
There's
bought
like a
one of the
full, like,
sprays.
there's like a pack that comes with them. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, if you have these like sets of paints that have the gradient, it makes it a lot easier. So you're not trying to like mix colors and like because that's just really difficult. So I like to work smarter, not harder, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Andy knows that's my weakness. I will sit there and play with clay all day, and I have fun with it. And like the power that we were talking about had like 100 different parts. I did most of the hair based off of a sculpt that Vinyl Alchemist did, and I kind of emulated that to get a flow for the clay. But I love that. But oh Lord, when it comes to painting, I will put it off all day. I'll be like, it's raining, it's gonna be humid in the garage. I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
Anything
so
to not
All the
paint.
excuses, yeah.
No, and I'm the opposite. Like with clay, like I used to do a little bit of clay work, and it's just like, man, it was just like frustrating. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, and I think it's just because I'm impatient sometimes with like, if you have to bake it or if it's to self-drying, like I want to do it and I want to get painting. So like, that's where I struggle with, even with paint drying. Like yesterday I was working on a Charizard or whatever, and I just put way too many layers on too quickly.
Oh,
and then
no.
I went to handle it. I was like, damn it. But just kind
I've
of
done that so many times. So I'm like working too often around I'm like working around the head and I'm just smearing it everywhere. I'm like, oh no, how did I smear that part?
Right.
I'm working too fast.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Then you're touching everything. Everything's getting paint all over it. Like, yeah.
It's all over your house. It's everywhere. Oh my goodness.
But the
yeah, no, yeah, but no, that's the cell shading is really tricky. And I think it's like the first one I did, gosh, who was it? It was a Dragon Ball piece. And I think I just got lucky. Like I think I had like a good reference photo, and I was like naive enough to think I could pull it off, and it like worked out okay, So
yeah,
it's just like
That's
about
awesome.
practicing, and
Yeah.
even because like it's helpful when there's like texture in a piece, so where the shadow would be. But like with Funko, a lot of the faces are just flat, right? So I was on Vinyl Alchemist. He did like a live thing of like where he was painting, and he was doing like a cell shade thing. So it was like really helpful to see how he was doing it, and just talking about having really crisp lines, which is important. Another thing too is like taking a pencil to outline how you're going to do. So instead of just like going for it, like sketching with a pencil, so then you have those lines to follow. That makes it like 1,000 times easier.
So I'm learning that everyone in the community knew about this trick before I did. I was working on my Kashibe piece from Chainsaw Man, and I was having the hardest time getting the scar and the facial hair. And Andy told me, "Oh, just draw it on with a pencil." And doing that changed the game. I was able to get it knocked out super quick and clean, and I could erase if I messed up. It's so funny. You're like the second or third person now that's brought up using the pencil beforehand. I was just out of the loop. That is, I think, the most useful tool to any new customizer. Use the pencil. It's a game changer.
Yeah, not a pen. I tried pen once.
Oh no,
Pen's no good.
no.
The pen
Not
will
gonna
bleed
work.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You get one shot. Yeah, I hope you.
Right. Yeah, and with like putting thin layers of paint on, the ink just keeps coming through. So even if you got your lines right with the pen, the line would come through.
Oh no! So no pens.
Yeah, the first time I did it, I tried it with a Sharpie pen, and I ended up ruining the head doing that. Because one, I didn't like how the scar was, so I tried to use acetone to get it off, and it didn't come off. It just stained more of the face. I tried painting over it, and with how many layers of paint it needed, I was losing details on the face, and I just had to scrap that head and then start from scratch. Oh, it was frustrating.
Yeah.
Only I'd known the pencil trick.
You got to do the pencil,
It's good to have those tips, because those are things that are just like, oh my gosh, like why didn't I think about it? And I'm glad I know about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so helpful. Well, and pencils are something that's huge for me because I use the paint pens, and it's I found that for some reason on these pops, it's so much easier to just even erase the paint pen itself. If I
Hmm.
mess up a line, I could just use the eraser and it comes off pretty, fairly well. So it's pencil's the way to go. It's like a multi-use tool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
So
no, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was about to detour.
No, I was going to say, Andy, and like you do a lot of like that line work and everything, and I definitely appreciate that. And that's another like you. It's amazing how you can just kind of go in this deep dive into a different realm of art. You know, like someone had mentioned paint pens to me before, and I was like, I'm not using paint pens. What's this person talking about? You know, and then like however long later, I was like, wait a second, that's a good idea. I should listen.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I love them so much. Yeah, that's like primarily what I'll use. I've been getting a lot more into the brush work and doing that. Because you had mentioned that was one of your tips you had given me, doing the longer lines. Because like with the paint pens, it starts to like skip a little bit. It doesn't quite give
Mhm.
that continuous line. So that's something that I've been doing a lot more brush work with. But oh my gosh, paint pens are like my jam. I love it so much. It's just so much fun to be able to detail these pops that way.
Yeah, for sure. I've also used like fine liner pens. Have you guys tried those?
No.
That's I feel like that's what it's just these like black pens that are like I guess used for like legal documents or something, but there's different like sizes for tips and they work really well. So I feel like some folks who are doing some of those fine like black line work, that's they're using those pens, the liner pens.
Oh,
I
those are
was
pretty good. Okay, awesome.
I was showing Andy the paint pens that I bought for the Makima eyes, and I bought a black paint pen for the Naruto Freddy. Um
Hmm.
and so that one, it's basically a pen tip, but it puts out paint. That is, I think, the closest to what you're describing that I've used.
Hmm.
But I'll say, yeah, I think a lot of people have this notion in their head when you say paint pens, like the ones you get at Walmart that have the super thick tip. And
Right,
at least for me, when people would recommend paint pens, I was like, I can't get as fine as I need to get.
right.
But when you look for like the more specialized art tools, it's a game changer. You know, Andy helped me look through a couple of different brands, so I could kind of find what I was looking for. And a lot of the customizing is just not giving up if you don't like the first time you try it, if it doesn't work. You know, trying different mediums and different tools within the same medium to really get to where you want your style to be and what you can work efficiently with. And I actually that's what I wanted to detour on, because you said that you've worked with clay a few times in the past, and we just saw that base that you made for the brook.
Hmm.
uh what other mediums have you kind of jumped into and played around with? Like Squirrely, he does the diamond customs.
Hmm.
We had Notorious on, who does the airbrushing. What have you played with, and what have you found that you liked or that wasn't really for you?
We talked about clay not being for me. It's not that I don't like it. Like I feel like I've done some interesting stuff with clay. Again, it's more of just like the time that goes into it. I just don't have the focus for it, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I use airbrush a lot. Um, so generally, like if I base coat things, I'm using an airbrush. Or a lot of my Galaxy pieces are like all airbrush. And then like if I add any like details, I'll use a regular brush. With the Brook, I mean the base is just like when I first started learning about other like not the Michaels brand paints, like I started learning about Vallejo and Citadel and things like that. It kind of sent me down this journey of miniature painting. So kind of looking at miniatures and um, dioramas and things like that, which was like really cool to think about, like making a base for a piece that has like the water on that brook piece. So yeah, so that's just cork. This is just like a cork base. And then there's this like Vallejo paste that looks like water. It emulates water. So you just slap that on and then you paint it. And then it creates that like water effect. So yeah, so I was talking earlier about like, you can go like a deep dive into like paint pens or, dioramas and stuff like that. So,
Hmm.
um, I've used like flocking, like grass material for certain bases and like snow effects. So those are some things that I really like to use. And then, I mean, during the pandemic, just being stuck in the house, it was just like online, like looking at paint. Like I was looking at paint more than I'd care to admit. But there's this other brand called Spaz Sticks. Have you guys heard of Spaz Sticks before?
That sounds familiar.
So
I have
like
not.
they use it for like RC cars and stuff, and that's what like this guy is. This is like just all like Spaz Sticks, like color shift paint. Uh,
Okay.
so that was
Yep.
really cool to use, and then yeah. So yeah, like generally using RC cars, I was like, well, why can't I use it on this piece of plastic, or vinyl or whatever? So that's fun to do. I really like using color shift metallic paints. And then like combining it with like a matte um, finish for like another piece of it. So it's not just like all shiny or all matte, having different textures and finishes to look at.
Was that
That's
one that?
something, yeah.
Oh, Eddie, you go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, you go. You go.
I was just gonna ask, was that big one? Was that airbrushed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh goodness, I can't even imagine how long that took.
Yeah, it took a good bit of time. Because it's like what is it? 18-inch pop, I guess. So it took a lot of time. And then, I wanted to get that like car finish, like that, like nice. So again, it's like talking to other artists and seeing what they use. And people use 2K clear. Have you guys heard of that?
Hmm.
So that's like what a lot of the artists use to get that like high gloss finish. That gets that like super like candy coat to it. So I think you see like, I don't know if Good Boy Customs uses 2K or not, but I know folks do, and that's how you get that like super like glossy finish, which is awesome. It's just like they don't I haven't found it yet in like airbrush form. So you need to like buy like a can of it, and then like you have to use it within like a certain amount of time, or else it's like no good. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So like metallics, I like doing a little bit of metallic. The color shift is something I've done a good bit of. Galaxy. The stone finish is something that I like doing the dry brushing and things like that. I think that's like a really rewarding technique.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up was the statues, because you do a lot of that type of work too, or like sometimes you've done a patina, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You've done
Yeah.
patina, like, yeah, like the patina finish and stuff. So yeah, that's it's so fun to do the different textures too, because yeah, you mentioned the galaxy and the stone and all the different types of finishes you can do on it. Looks so cool on them. That's something that I want to start getting back into, because I used to do that a lot more. I used to
Mm-hmm.
like just spray paint the whole thing and then I'd start over.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that can be so much fun. And it's so much fun to like, I think as a beginning artist, you can kind of see where all the detailing is, especially in the pop. So you can kind of see like, oh, maybe I would detail it like this on the clothes, or
Mm-hmm.
detail it like this on the arms and stuff. So it's kind of a good template to start out as, if you're starting out on these pops, to kind of
Sure.
get into detailing for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what the Ripley piece that I had. I did like a stone version of it first, and then it was just kind of sitting on a shelf. And then I was like, well, why don't I just paint it and see where it goes? And that's what. So, and it was good to use like thin layers, and the the shading from the statue style that I did was like served as a good guide for how to paint it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And you mentioned a technique that I actually just learned about recently, the dry brushing. So for those who are unaware like myself, and tell me if I'm wrong. I just saw a video on like on Facebook or something. So you paint it all black, then I believe you coat it in white or gray, and then you add your tones after the fact to kind of to let that black not bleed through, but to give that extra like shading detail. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty close to right. I would say you base coat it, whatever color you want to be. Like think of it as like a shadow and going from dark to light, right? Like, and you want to have the parts that are raised to be the lightest, and the parts that are recessed to be darkest, right? Because that's how light would hit something. So generally, I would do like black, and then I would there's like you can get brushes for dry brushing. I think I have. It's like I have a Citadel dry brush. So this is like, you can see that guy there.
Oh, there's a specialized brush for it?
Oh yeah, they make like brushes for dry brushing. And so it's like the bristles are a little bit stiffer, you know. They make smaller ones, but yeah, so if you did black first, I would usually go like gray next, and then like hit all the spots with gray, and then like a lighter gray, and then a white for like the final like highest points that I really want to pop. So but yeah, it's like the way I try to describe it when people have asked me to like, how do you do it? You know, it's like if you know, when you see like archaeologists like uncovering like bone, you know, it's like that. You're just like kind of brushing and then like uncovering the details of the piece, you know. So it's like pretty easy technique, super rewarding, and yeah, a lot of fun. There's different, like Citadel makes dry paints, so you can also use like their dry paint, which is helpful. Or you can use regular paint. You just need to get the excess off, so you're not just like smearing your paint everywhere. It's just like think of it as like a dusting is what you're trying to do, just to highlight the details of the piece.
That's super cool.
That's so
I
true.
didn't know
Yeah.
they had paints and brushes for it.
Yeah.
That's just cool.
The more you know. See, that's why we get in trouble as artists, because then we figure out they're like, oh, there's actually a thing for this, and then
Exactly.
you get sucked into it. Yeah, and I remember I came across the first dry, because like the dry paint is like really pasty, like when you use that dry paint, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I remember the first time I got it, I was like, oh, this is the tone I need, but I didn't know it was dry paint, so I thought it had gone bad.
Right.
And I was like so freaked out. I was like, oh no. I was like, I didn't realize that it was like an actual like specific thing. But no, it turned out really great. That was one of my favorite paints to use.
Yeah. There's actually
yeah,
some
no,
too that are like, I bought some of the dry paint and it is like very gummy and like almost doesn't get on the brush. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine that's how it's supposed to be, because it's really hard to get it onto the brush. But then there's others that like actually like adhere to the brush, and that's like what I'm going for. So I don't, maybe some of them are like, maybe they do go bad, you know?
Right. No,
So,
yeah, that's probably what happened to me then.
yeah.
No, in my luck, that's what happened.
Well,
Yeah, so now you know, Lewis. Now you know.
Well, it's so niche, you know, we would never know. You know, it could be just how the paint's meant to be. It could be that it went bad. Who are we gonna ask? You know,
Exactly.
I just went for it. I just used it anyway.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's a really fun technique. And yeah, and that was through like Warhammer and watching folks who paint miniatures and stuff. That's how I got turned on to these other techniques that they use in the miniature world, you know.
Well, it's so funny. That's actually when I first started customizing, those were the videos I had to look up, was like miniature paintings. Because if you look up custom pops, you're not going to find a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube. But well, I mean, now that a lot of customizers have started posting videos, now you can. But back in the day, we only had miniatures to watch.
Right.
That's where I got a lot of my techniques, was watching people paint miniatures and just applying it to a slightly bigger medium.
Yep.
Right. Same for me too. Yeah.
Well, that's what a lot of the paints are that we use too, or is like, that's what I use, like the Citadel, like you mentioned. I use a lot of miniature paints and a lot of miniature brushes as well. So yeah, it translates pretty. That's going to be your section at the hobby store when you go for Funko Pops, is that miniature section.
For sure. Yeah. When you use like the Citadel technical blood, blood for the blood gods, like the technical stuff is great. Vallejo makes like a bunch of like rust finishes and stuff, which are awesome to use for some of the, you know, I don't know. I think I did like a beat up looking Iron Man piece and I used like the rust and things like that. So it's
Oh,
fun
nice.
to use those different kind of like technical paints, you know.
I like the ones that I haven't used them, but I've seen in a lot of videos, of course, on those miniatures of the ones that like raise in texture. Like
Hmm.
there was one that like it's like wasteland, and like as you brush it, like raises a little bit in certain areas, and it creates a very like
Cool.
desert looking kind of feel.
Uh,
I think those are super
Interesting.
cool. I love that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's all sorts of cool stuff that make things a lot easier because like when you're, I think as like a customizer or an artist, a lot of times you see stuff like how are they doing this? This is amazing, you know. And then oftentimes there's like a technique to it that makes things a little bit easier, you know. So
Or even just certain types of paints as well, or like washes. That's something that I started using with like mechanical stuff. Is there's just like a very watered down black paint, basically, and then you just kind of wash it over. I just have a brush with it, and it makes it
mhm,
look super like greasy, and it just looks great. Yeah, but it makes it seem like, wow, this is like a crazy hard technique. No, and it's not very difficult at all.
right. Yeah. No, I love washes and dry paint and all that stuff. Those are
Mhm.
definitely helpful. Those are like my bread and butter.
I saw a piece you did recently, like super recently, like I think you posted it yesterday or the day before of the Kraken.
Hmm.
And I think it's super cool because if looking at the Kraken mold, it's a very simple one, but the way you detailed it, like it now looks like this very like very textured, very like multicolored thing. I mean, first of all, I would love to hear like how you did all of that. Like you had like the spots on there.
Hmm.
But also, just how do you I guess how do you get the idea to do some of your projects? Like is it just a whim sometimes or is it a lot of planning?
I feel like it's on a whim. Like I got the idea of one, I was like, I don't really love the color of this Kraken. Like, what would be a cool color to go with? So then I'm like looking up different images of the Kraken and everything else. And then just looking at the piece of like, what do I want to like stand out? Like, what's important, you know? And yeah, so just like deciding on a color, thinking about like color palette, what colors go well together. And then, yeah, just figuring out which like parts to like really pump up to make stand out, you know. And yeah, then like with like the like this textures or like the I use like a again airbrush on like those like circles and things that are on the head with like stencil. So like I'll use stencils to like create
Oh.
different shapes and things like that. So and then dry brushing washes, you know, like on like the thing on top of his head, and then for like the ship that he's holding, yeah, I wanted to have like metallic, like I wanted to look like real wood, and then I also wanted like the gold pieces to look like gold. So I like used metallics and then a technical paint that like emulates wood, and then dry brushed a little bit to highlight some of those details. But yeah, so it's lots of like layering and then just thinking about color palette. So
That's amazing. No, it came out great. It's you just described so many techniques that you use. It is so I
uh,
love it though because yeah, no, because it's so awesome that it turned out the way that it did because yeah, it looked really good. And I love the ones too like you did there it reminds me of like the laprises that you've done because you've done like
mhm,
those with like the grass on the back too or like the felt
mhm.
and stuff. It looks really cool. Yeah, no, they turn out super nice with those finishes for sure.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. I was like thinking, like, do I want to like make a base for this thing? And then ultimately decided because I wanted to like have some kind of water element, but that's like again, like I'm going down this deep dive of like
Oh yeah.
creating this like elaborate scene for this crack inside.
Yep.
You know, again, less is more, you know, it's like I
Right.
think it's good enough, you know. And then of course with the eyes, like I wanted the eyes to be like to really pop and stand out, you know. So um yeah, so just some like techniques there, like with the airbrush to create like I guess ombre, like gradient. I think that looks really cool.
Hmm.
Uh, and then just shading as well, you know, around the eye. So
That's
That's amazing.
you're
No, it
blowing
looks
my
so
mind.
good. I know, no, it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we talked about it with Notorious. Airbrushing is to this day something that just gives me anxiety. You all have a skill that I am very jealous of, and I look forward to developing and figuring out how you guys got to that level. We joke around on the side in our group chat. Every time we have a guest on that does something new, we're just like, well, now we have one more Infinity Stone. Right now, we got all the tips and tricks for another
Yep, for
medium.
another type. Yep, we're just
Nice.
collecting all those stones.
Are you guys using the airbrush or no?
I have one. I have not used it yet. I am like terrified of using it. I think I'm like not looking forward to the cleanup of it and like the
Mhm.
maintenance of it. And
Right.
also just, yeah. So I think I also need to clean out my garage. That's one of my big excuses is I'm like, I got to clean that sucker out first before I start airbrushing.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's something that gives me anxiety for sure.
Right. Yeah, I think it's like anything else. Like I think our minds make it a lot more intense than what it is. At the end of the day, you finish using the paint and you wash. You flush it with water, and as long as you're not like painting and like falling asleep and letting the
Right.
paint dry, like you'll be in good shape.
Okay.
So,
Oof, okay.
and
So
it's
don't.
That makes me feel
it's a
better.
game changer too, man. Like the airbrush is so helpful.
Yeah.
Because at one point when I was painting, I was using spray paint. You know what I mean? Like I would go in my backyard and I
Mhm.
was spray paint and like, you know, and it was cool. There were some cool pieces that I did, but yeah, the airbrush is a whole nother like um useful tool to add to your arsenal, your Infinity
That's
Stone.
awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
That's
in
for sure.
spray paint, that's what I was using on that Ultra Ego Vegeta, and I spray painting can be a lifesaver and save you from having to get those extra tools. But for anybody who is talking about doing painting in that kind of medium, I will 100% say like learning how to airbrush is going to be a lot better than using the sprays, because the sprays can mess up a project more so than helping it. Like on that Ultra Ego Vid, just the clumping and some of it running. If you're too thick with it, and I think the airbrush is a lot easier to minimize those factors.
Right. Yeah. No, way more control and accuracy with your paint. Yeah. Are you using airbrush, Lewis?
Nope. I literally just bought a can of the spray paint for the skin tone, and I found that the only way that you can make the sprays work efficiently is if you do one layer and you be at everything you need in multiple layers, because one layer, give it 24 hours, one layer 24 hours. The airbrush, you're gonna have a lot more control from what we were talking about with Notorious, but I
Right.
haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. I just bought a vacuum chamber, so I'm working
Oh,
with resin
nice.
right now. That's the toy at the moment.
Nice. No, it's
That's the
such a
latest
good
thing,
tool.
yeah.
And and it dries like the Vallejo paints or Mission paints. They dry quickly too, so you're not like having to wait so long for the piece to dry. In your garage or wherever you're painting.
Oh, for sure. I was
I
gonna ask you, Matt, what's one of your favorite pieces that you've done?
Um, let me- so I did this Hodar from Game of Thrones. Are you guys familiar with him?
Yeah.
And it's like the hold the door piece where he's up against the door and there's all these hands that are like grabbing him and stuff. And I had a lot of fun doing that one, just because it's like the snow base. I really got to like pump up the details on the character, and then like all the hands making them different like flesh tones, and
Oh, nice.
I really enjoyed doing that one. And then also those like graffiti art. Remember those Marvel pieces that came out? They're
Hmm.
kind of ugly looking, but if you like painted over them, it was like a really neat looking piece. So I did a
Right.
couple. I did an Iron Man one that was like post-apocalyptic, that had this like trash can that was like spilling out like ooze or something, and I think I did a bit of a cell shade on him as well.
That's
Uh,
cool.
and I really enjoy doing that one too. And I also did I like to add little like Easter eggs to the piece, So I had like graffiti that I added to it that had like deep thought arts, like initials in the graffiti, and then like just some like things that were like scattered throughout for
That's really cool.
whoever to enjoy. So Yeah, but it's hard to pick just one. I mean, I really like enjoy painting. I mean, really, I like doing like those galaxy pieces, like because again, it's a lot of like going for it, and then it's cut because it's like a lot of them react to black light. Like you never know how it's going to look until you put it under the black light. So it's like,
Right,
oh,
exactly.
surprise yourself. So yeah, I would say those are some of my favorite ones that I've done.
That's awesome. I love it. No, those are great pieces. Yeah, we'll see if we can add them later. Lewis can try and find those pictures so we can post them up on there. Because those are awesome. That sounds so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
If
man.
they're on your Instagram, I can track them down real quick and I'll throw them up here.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I did a few of the Hodar piece and then a few of the Iron Man graffiti thing too. So
That's awesome.
One thing that I have found really kind of makes customizing more fun, I guess, just more community feeling is having people that you can kind of share your work, like share the sneak peeks and stuff, and just kind of having your the people you partner with. Like me and Andy, we're in a group chat and we message back and forth a lot, or I'll message vet draws whenever I'm working on something that glows. Do you feel that you have like your partners in crime, if you will, like people that you pair with?
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's like a lot of people that I chat with and throw ideas out to. So I mean, I'll send Andy like a picture of something that I might be on, or MD Customs every once in a while, throw something his way, or Deep Thought, Bosco, Iconic Repaints. Do you know Iconic Repaints? He does a lot of Godzilla repaints, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I feel like there's a whole list of folks that I'll like send pieces out to get like feedback on. So what is it? Shappy's Customs. Him, he does a lot of good glow work. We're actually like collaborating on a piece, so that'll be cool. And it, like he sent me like what he's working on. Like I did like a cell shaded version of the piece, and then he's gonna make it glow, and it's looking awesome. So
you all just did a collab recently, right?
we did. Well, what was it? Was it Whitebeard, that one that I did the statue and made that glow? Or
I think so. I saw that you all posted a collab. Maybe I'm talking about someone else, but I could have swore it was you and Schnappy who just did one.
Was it a Madara?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it was that one. Yeah.
Well, so that's what he's going to be working on. So that he'll be making that.
That's the one. Okay.
Yeah. And he's like purchased a couple pieces from me that he's like posted.
Oh, gotcha. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I'll like, bounce ideas off him, or there's a lot of like, was it Stinky Cheese? Do you guys know Stinky Cheese?
Yep.
I'll throw some ideas around with him. So I just, there's a lot of folks I'll chat with and kick ideas around with. And I do love collaborating too. I think that's a lot of fun. So
I actually I worked with Stinky Cheese way before he changed his name. Actually, we were both sitting at like 200 followers. We reached out and we would message back and forth and stuff. And seeing the pieces that he's come out with recently, he went on hiatus for a while, but he came back with like the Tondro Water Dragon.
Yeah,
I don't remember the name of the actual technique. And he did. Thank you. And then there was Jiraiya in the hot tub. Like he came back ready to work, and he put out a lot of cool stuff. So it was cool seeing him come back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's a good guy. I like just chatting with him about art and whatever else, So yeah. So there's no shortage of folks that I'll talk to, and sometimes I'm like, man, I don't want to like share this with anyone. I don't want to like spoil the and it's good to get feedback too. So
that's so true. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, the marketing itself, and just knowing when to post something or what to post or how to post it is so difficult. And even just the selling part of it too, because a lot of us are, we get into that selling portion of it, and we want, we do commissions for people. And so yeah, so it's definitely not a fun part of it as an artist. It's definitely not like, it's not my favorite part for sure.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's something that and it's so difficult. That's something that is also difficult, is setting up prices, because you're like, I want to do a fair price, but I feel like there's so many times I'm like, I throw out a number and they're like, okay, see you later. And I'm like, okay. I'm like,
Yeah, for
yikes,
sure.
okay.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely tricky. I mean, I I don't like post, like I don't have a website, and I will post on Mercari every now and again. But ultimately, I'd rather someone just reach out to me and be like, "Hey, is that available?" So, but when that
Exactly.
doesn't
Yeah.
happen, then you're like stuck with a bunch of customs, and you need to post them. So, but yeah, it's not my favorite thing to do, and I do have fun too, like making the videos and things like that, the reels on Instagram. I have a lot of fun being creative with that too. So yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
footage we could post throughout the video of you out in your workshop getting your pieces put together?
Um, I don't really take like videos of that, but in my workshop, like it's a hot mess right now. I mean, it's like,
It's everywhere. Yeah, that's how everyone's
yeah,
workshop is.
yeah. Although yesterday I did organize some of my paints, so I was like, I need to like clear the counter space. Um, but yeah, I'll see if I can come up with something.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Um, guys, I think we might be approaching time here. Matt, is there anything that you're working on that you wanna share with anyone, or anything you wanna say to our audiences?
um well, so I mentioned earlier I'll be doing like a couple anime pieces that'll be I think interesting. Uh, Teaming up with Drax Studios. He does like the 3D printing, which
Oh,
I think
nice.
that's been a game changer, I think, for the custom world over the past couple
Hmm.
years. So yeah, I'll be doing like a Chainsaw Man piece and then a Demon Slayer piece. I think they should be pretty cool looking. Yeah, and then just as like anything else for folks to think about, I think it's just be nice to each other and
Yeah.
share information. Don't be gatekeepers to be people being creative. I think that's
Hmm.
what it's all about. I think we learn from each other. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. I was excited we were able to make it work.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. We had a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us and giving us your wisdom.
Sure thing.
Yeah,
But
we're
don't
both
hesitate to reach out.
Yeah,
listen.
for sure.
We're constantly looking for people to join, and like we said, it's not always the most social community, so we might be having some repeat guests. So keep an eye on your inbox. We'll we'll be reaching
Yeah,
out.
I know. We'll be reaching out again for later projects.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. I'll do the normal YouTuber spiel, like, comment, subscribe.
Yep.
And we'll see you all in the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.